All right. Hello. Welcome back. Yes, it's been just a little while. I did told you guys that I have more videos, so there's going to be the continuation of it, um, especially during this time where we need to continue educating, being aware, continue doing shadow work and inner work, and also continue calling your representative, continue boycotting, divesting from certain companies and certain things that are not helping, mostly contributing genocide, not just on Palestine, but Congo and Sudan. We need to continue also sharing also content about Sudan as well. Okay, educating ourselves about Sudan. We cannot let them feel ignored because they're not. It's just they're all connected. All the genocides, of course. That's what capitalism does. So disease and so is greed are the disease of this planet, believe it or not. And it's like by the 1% is being normalized and try to because most of us are awake at this point, right? I don't see why you wouldn't, unless you're really stuck in illusion and you really believe um, that it's okay to genocide, rape, and grape, right? And domestic violence and homelessness and all of that. Well, we're not around here. We're here to educate and uplift and align people to the real alignment. And I hope that that actually comes very clear here because that's where I do here in this channel or any of my content that I do here. Please, 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 please um, share also the content that is shared here from other content creators as well. Usually when I share here, it has their handles on the top or goes up and down from Instagram or TikTok, because sometimes I can't fit it in the description below, but most of them are put there in the description below whenever I can. But if not, you can look at their handles. You can go look them up yourself, okay? And share the video, share it, save it. And usually if it's in evidence that I show here, I will gladly hope so that I know Father God guides you, most of you, in your intuition, just like me, because we're all connected, we're not separated, to also share it on your own platforms, right? So I hope you've been listening to that guidance as well. When he tells you that video, I need you to look for it and I need you to share it in your platform or share it with other people or share it in your stories. Are you listening to that voice? You better be listening to that voice. That's Holy Spirit, because this work of decolonizing, okay, but also in straining our intuition and our discernment during this time is very vital. All of this going on in the world are lessons. Not only it's for everybody, but some other have to struggle through that lesson harder than others, and it's not fair because we don't live in an equal world. So that's our job, to create equality, justice, and balance, and to not only for others but for everybody involved, right, on this planet. And I know for a lot of y'all feels like heavy weight, which is why it is important that this is how you also overcome the fears and the doubts and all that of white supremacy and fascism and disgusting, toxic, imperialist, and psychopathic leaders that we have. That it needs to be, they need to be just removed out of power. Okay, and that's what they're, creating propaganda, fake propaganda, and stuff like that. And that's our job to discern those things, okay, and get to the facts, get the real truth, connect with people who are constantly are seeking the truth. That's important, okay. Those who debunk lies and bullshit. Most of them are people who are the real content creators, who are real Palestinians, who are real Sudanese, who are real Congolese, who are real Haitians, who are real. Do you know what I'm saying? Like real. Like, you know how we say like 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 real Christians, like people who really, who are real Jewish, not like fake ass Jewish Zionists. No, those are fake ass shit. Okay, real Jews are all by against genocide. Okay, that's your cue. Christians, real Christians, are real anti-genocide. They don't benefit. They don't monetize this stuff. They don't do that. Right? Real Muslim, the same thing goes. The real indigenous, they are not. What? No, we are all outside of the status quo and not with our oppressors, right? That's the deal. Everybody else, just just waste of breath for real and like time. So a lot of y'all, I used to just focus on your learning, your discerning and divesting and digesting and decolonizing, and don't focus on other people who are trying to bring you down or to have the same rebuttal that everybody else has. Oh, it's Hamas. Oh, it's the hostage. Oh, this and that. But they're not really educating themselves, and they don't. At this point, they don't really want to. They're lazy, right? They don't want to do it. You're still hopeful that they do, but don't waste your time with that, because there's other people that will gladly are in that shifting and that awakening as well, who will need your help, who once they get out and wake up and be like, wait, what the fuck, what I was, because eventually everybody does. Eventually the illusion falls off, the dark magic witchcraft falls off, the illusion is off. Most of us, it is off. Other people are just trying to ignore it because they're so comfortable with comfortability and being complicit, and like they benefit from it. And I'm talking financially, because that's the only thing that will benefit. Because emotionally, spiritually, in every possible way, they will always feel disgusted, and they will try to seek satisfaction and to numb their misery, their rotten souls. And some of them don't have a soul or conscience or heart, So that's why I tell you guys, we're nobody's God. Thank God for that. And just pray for those people. Be like, yeah, I hope you find God. I hope you gain your heart back and you get your soul back, because being okay with harming other people so that you can feel comfortable, so that you can live, it's not a way to live. I'm telling you, it's the worst thing to. And for a lot of y'all, like, I don't know how people sleep, to be honest, thinking that it's okay what's going on and butchering people, children and stuff like that. Oh, just because they're not my color, they're not my religion or my race or whatever. That is just disgusting. And it's so sad but I decided that we're not going to live in a world like that, at least in my community. So if you're down for that, awesome. You're welcome to stay. All the people who are not down with that, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not about race, it's not about politics, it's not about, like, excuse me, what? Everything is about race. When you live in a society, in a system that thrives on genocide, conflict, and wars, useless wars, just to for 1% to get more than they already have. Like, it's not possible that in 2024 these people are in billions and still going up, and everybody else is suffering with paying rent and having food in their table, or like, and now it's even more like, okay, well, now we can buy certain things affordable. But it's good, because it really is not healthy for you anyways, right? But now most of the companies are supporters of, investing weapons and stuff like that for Israel, or I would say occupy Palestine, right? Because that fucking place should not exist, and fuck Israel. 110 times full. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, it triggers you? Good. That's where the healing needs to work.
What you're seeing behind me is an armored Israeli bulldozer destroying a Palestinian building in Gaza. This bulldozer is one of many that have been operating in the Strip as a part of an Israeli-led campaign to destroy as much Palestinian infrastructure as possible. It's a campaign that goes beyond just simple bulldozing, with Israeli attacks having destroyed or damaged an estimated 63% of all structures in Gaza. That being said, that video is not what I want to talk about today. Instead, I want to talk about the bulldozer itself and the company that made it. That bulldozer was made by Caterpillar, an American company that over the years has played a role in several atrocities, and over the past couple of decades has played a role facilitating the ongoing Israeli occupation and colonization of Palestine. For those of you who don't know, Caterpillar is an American construction, mining, and engineering equipment manufacturer, and is currently the world's largest manufacturer of construction equipment. It traces its origins back to a 1925 merger between the Holt Manufacturing Company and the CL Best Tractor Company, which created a new entity, the then California-based Caterpillar Tractor Company. In 1986, the company would reorganize itself as a Delaware corporation under the current name Caterpillar Incorporated. But after its founding, it didn't take Caterpillar very long to start popping up as a name that was referenced in atrocities that were being committed abroad. Caterpillar equipment would actually go on to play a role in the Vietnam War. In 1971, for example, massive 20-ton Caterpillar tractors tore into parts of the Boy Loi Woods, an area northwest of Saigon that had already been defoliated, bombed, and burned. In 26 days, those tractors would clear 6,037 acres of Vietnamese land. That wasn't an isolated incident. In fact, American bulldozers may have torn up and plowed just under as much as 2% of the entire land area of South Vietnam. This equipment, along with bulldozers, heavy tanks, and other armored vehicles, were used by U.S. forces to destroy orchards, paddies, individual homes, and even entire hamlets in Vietnam. Given that history, it's really no surprise that over the past couple of decades, Caterpillar has played a non-insignificant role in helping facilitate Israeli colonization in Palestine. In fact, for decades, Caterpillar has supplied heavy machinery, most notably the Caterpillar D9 armored bulldozer, to the Israeli military. The company's sole distributor in so-called Israel is Israel Tractors and Equipment, a subsidiary of 𓂀𝆃 Enterprises. Caterpillar themselves has boasted that ITE had a major role of the building of so-called Israel's infrastructure with Caterpillar equipment since its founding in 1948. Caterpillar equipment is also oftentimes gifted to so-called Israel through the U.S. government's foreign military financing program. For example, in 2017, the Israeli military purchased dozens of Caterpillar heavy engineering vehicles in a deal described as the largest acquisition of its kind in the last 20 years. That sale was financed by the United States. Now, once so-called Israel receives these bulldozers, they're retrofitted for the purposes of the Israeli military by Ramta, a subsidiary of the Israeli aerospace industries in collaboration with Caterpillar's Israeli licensee, 𓂀𝆃 Enterprises. That retrofitting can include the installation of gunner positions and a bulletproof driver cabin to allow for battle use, meaning that these civilian bulldozers are retrofitted for military application. On top of that, IAI and 𝓀𝆃 Enterprises have also developed 3 versions of an unmanned remote-controlled armored D9 nicknamed Thunder of Dawn, Winnie the Pooh, and Panda. Those bulldozers are deployed across Gaza and have been used against protesters in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military routinely uses Caterpillar D9 bulldozers to demolish Palestinian homes, public buildings, roads, commercial properties, agricultural land, and other civilian infrastructure. And according to Human Rights Watch, at least since 2004, the Israeli military has used the D9 as its primary weapon to raze Palestinian homes, destroy agriculture, and shred roads in violation of the laws of war. And according to documentation by the organization Who Profits, between 2021 and January 2022 alone, D9 bulldozers were used to demolish homes, schools, roads, and infrastructure in Palestinian neighborhoods in West Bank and East Jerusalem. Those same D9 bulldozers were used extensively by Israeli occupational forces in Gaza during their attacks in 2008 and 2009 and 2014. And in the 2014 case in particular, Israeli occupational forces killed at least 2,131 Palestinians. In addition, Israeli occupational forces routinely use D9 bulldozers to carry out extrajudicial killings of Palestinians as a part of what they call a pressure cooker procedure. That pressure cooker procedure is essentially a process of utilizing D9 bulldozers to demolish and tear down homes that contain Palestinians that are being targeted for arrest, oftentimes killing them and burying them under the rubble of their own homes. Armored D9 bulldozers are also used as a sort of crowd control method by Israeli occupational forces. For example, during a 2020 protest in a village in the occupied West Bank, the Israeli military used D9 bulldozers to deliberately push large boulders towards protesters, including young children, an act that injured at least 2. 1 year earlier, during the Great March of Return mass protests in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli military actually also deployed D9s against unarmed civilian protesters. These Israeli D9 bulldozers are also being used in occupied Palestine to, in at least one instance, kill American citizens. In a notorious incident in 2003, a D9 bulldozer crushed to death American peace activist Rachel Corrie as she attempted to defend a Palestinian home from being demolished while the family was still inside. The Corrie family, after her death, sued Caterpillar in the U.S. for aiding and abetting war crimes and other serious human rights violations, and while the court dismissed the case for lack of jurisdiction, this incident sparked a grassroots campaign against the company. Caterpillar responded to that grassroots campaign by hiring private surveillance firms to infiltrate the campaign and spy on protesters and activists, including Rachel Corrie's family. Getting past D9s, though, Caterpillar also supplies the Israeli military with other equipment, including various models of wheel loaders, armored excavators, and remote-controlled mini-loaders known as front runners or mini-cats. Mini-cats in particular have been modified for military use by IAI, just like D9s, and they've actually been involved in home demolitions and in a 2006 Israeli military raid on a Palestinian prison in Jericho in the occupied West Bank. And Caterpillar heavy machinery and equipment is regularly used in the construction and expansion of illegal Israeli settlements and their infrastructure in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Various models of Caterpillar bulldozers, excavators, and wheel loaders have also been used in the construction and expansion of the illegal separation wall in the occupied West Bank, the blockade wall that's been erected around Gaza by so-called Israel, and several military checkpoints in the occupied West Bank. And the Israeli military has used the Badger E349, a weaponized armored version of the Caterpillar 349E hydraulic excavator, to carry out extrajudicial executions of Palestinians. And to connect what's going on in Palestine to what's going on in the so-called US, we're actually seeing Caterpillar equipment used for nefarious purposes here as well. In fact, equipment and machinery manufactured by Caterpillar has also been used in various construction projects at US prisons, CBP, and ICE facilities, and the US-Mexico border. In essence, Caterpillar, though marketed essentially as a construction equipment company, is a company that has been able to get away with complicity in countless atrocities over the decades. And when we see videos like this, it's important for us not just to recognize the horrors that are going on within these videos, but also the companies that are profiting off of them. But yeah, just something worth thinking about, I think. As always, free Palestine, salamu alaikum, and have a great day.
Of y'all, you're still living in the same karmic cycle, the same. We're all here breaking generational curses, and one of that curse that everyone, because nobody's free until everyone's free, is that one: the curse of white supremacy, fascism, imperialists, and fucking 76, 86, I don't know how many years of apartheid and fucking colonization. And even before that, it's not even that. We also have the Black history, right? Where we have like 400 years of, and indigenous as well, right? So there's a lot of reparation, there's a lot of healing, absolutely. But it does not mean that we are not creating boundaries and that we're not standing up for ourselves, that we're not voicing and standing up for what's right. Because we have to do that all the time. And then pass that to our king, okay? The next is kin, okay? Or family members or younger generation. Because we want to see what we want to see in this generation, right? So a lot of things need to change. And I know that for a lot of people, it's a lot of work. It's really hard to change things, but I think we could do it. We're all capable of, we're all adapting. We can adapt. We're all capable of being loyal, like a dog. And have empathy and compassion. I think one of the spiritual awakenings that a lot of us in all the very spiritual in the fifth ascension and their ascension process, you realize that you go back to zero, right? Same thing as like the arcana to the fool. So it's kind of like a very humbling experience for a lot of y'all who feel like all high almighty, which is an illusion as well. Be careful. The devil will try to trick you with that one. You're not higher or you're not better than anybody else because you can ignore the suffering of others better. Let that sink in. Because a lot of y'all, this is why a lot of you don't want to do the decolonization. You find it's a lot of work when it's not. It's a vital work. And those who would consider yourselves spiritualists and do energy reading and stuff like that, you're not reading no energy until you do the decolonization. You know that. So a lot of you have that narcissist spirit where you are comfortable with ignoring suffering and pain because white supremacy benefits you, fascism, imperialist, capitalist system benefits you. And if you're in that energy and you're not helping others with that privilege that you already have, we have a problem. You're not reading energies. You're reading something else. And I'm going to leave it like that. Because I'm not one of those people. I'm done being one of those people. Now we're just going to focus on healing ourselves and moving forward and continue advocating for those who are dealing with injustices, that they don't have to. So others can have more and live more comfortably than others and live off the suffering and horrible conditions than others. So they can feel themselves better while others suffer. It is narcissism. Sadist as well. So we have a system that educates and programs people to be narcissists, sadists, psychopath, and psychological liars. Wow. That's the world that we want to live in. Oh, and also psychological liars because they're constantly lying to themselves about climate change, which is something crazy that I've been seeing that for 7 years here on YouTube, how they block anything that talks about climate change or education, even though I do have a environmental science background. So when I put information here, I've noticed that my videos get watered down, censored, and all that stuff. So it's not just content about Palestine, Congo, and Sudan. It's also, so any truth that is exposes these people in power, just watch out how censor, how doesn't get a lot of likes, doesn't get a lot of views, because it's the truth. So a lot of us, watch out for that. Okay? All those of you, there's a lot of content out there that is just bullshit. It's just distraction. It's just to keep you in the illusion, trapped in conforming and ignoring what's going on. Don't fall for that. That is the worst trickster. Our own greed and ignorance. All right? So, here are the other videos.
Most people have no idea that the United States and Israel have already perpetrated a genocide of over 150,000 indigenous people in Guatemala. There's a reason why these governments act like the current genocide is just business as usual, because for them, it is. And it is a business. The United Fruit Company, now known as Chiquita Banana, owned 40% of the land in Guatemala, and their monopoly let them brutally exploit their farm workers. It wasn't a US colony, guys, just all the land was owned by a US company. So Guatemala naturally elected a president who would take their country back from this foreign company. He started redistributing the land back to their mostly indigenous farmers who actually worked it, but the US called it communism and backed a coup to overthrow him. I mean, it definitely wasn't capitalism, but the coup led to a bloody civil war between the US-backed right-wing military dictatorship, nothing new there, and the left-wing rebels. The Guatemalan military began accusing the indigenous people in the countryside of aiding the rebel and by 1980, the massacres and executions became all too common. Guatemalans and foreign volunteers are still excavating the mass graves and identifying victims to this day. The Guatemalan army destroyed over 600 Maya villages, slaughtering the villagers, including women and children, and they targeted political opponents for execution. Over 200,000 people were killed in the war in total, most of them Maya and other indigenous people. And it's estimated that 1.5 million people were displaced because of the war. The United States secretly had over 1,000 CIA and Green Beret personnel on the ground in Guatemala, helping to train the army that did all this. The CIA helped them gather intelligence used to target their victims, and so did Israel. Israel even helped the military develop a computer system that tracked electric and water usage to pinpoint rebel safe houses. The US supplied the regime with plenty of weapons until laws and Congress started getting in the way. And when that happened, they turned to their friends in Israel for the weapons. To no one's surprise, the worst years of this genocide happened under Reagan's presidency. Reagan is literally the devil. He called the genocide Guatemalan dictator, quote, a man of great personal integrity. Reagan went around the weapons embargo by reclassifying the aid as non-military support, but the jeeps and helicopters he sent were instrumental for the army to navigate the highlands where the indigenous people lived. In documents uncovered, the US described the indigenous people as civilian support mechanisms in order to dehumanize them and justify their genocide. This is why they don't teach us history. A UN-backed commission officially found that the Guatemalan government committed genocide against the Maya people, and that the US was complicit. In 2013, Guatemala's former dictator was convicted of genocide, but the ruling was overturned. While our government still backs the same atrocities against indigenous people around the world, now we are connected and we can fight to learn their stories and lift their voices to try to finally change things.
So the only thing that the warmongering criminals running our world care about is money, right? Well, it's definitely up there, but there is another more subtle thing that they care very deeply about, and that's words. Thomas Zaz once said that the rule of the jungle is eat or be eaten, but in the human world, the rule is define or be defined. And what that means is that while money is king, it's the narrative that facilitates the flow of money. So for example, everybody's like, well, if it was 30,000 or 40,000, or according to the most recent reports, 186,000 people killed in Germany or France or Canada, the world would be up in arms, right? But the thing is that the word used to define a Canadian or a German or a French person is citizen, civilian, whereas the word used to define a person in Gaza is terrorist. Most of us know by now that it was Israeli money that essentially funded Hamas and helped it get started up in the beginning. Why? Because besides Gaza being an economically excluded, undefined territory, having an armed military that forgoes any formation of a administrative unit or official government representation makes it a hostile territory. So by law, by definition, by the narrative, Israel isn't really attacking civilians. Most Palestinians have IDs that say X, where your Palestinian says Canada or United States or France. And that's also why the entire international community is not only not in an uproar, but is also resisting acknowledging Palestine as a state. Because once Palestine is recognized as a state, then its people are recognized as state citizens. And once its people become state citizens, it becomes massively illegal to let Israel continue doing what it's doing to them. That's what's making it so difficult to take anybody to court. That's what's keeping all the people in power protected from having to say anything. They're basically just hiding behind their finger because that's the game. It's all a game of words and numbers. Because what people is Israel killing? Well, the Palestinian people. What Palestinian people? There's no Palestine. That's why the Oslo Accords forego any recognition of the Palestinian state or the Palestinian people. When you don't have a state, then you're not a citizen of a state. And if you're not a citizen of a state, then you have no rights as a citizen. So the only thing really separating us in terms of people on this side and the people on that side is the people on that side's finger that they're all hiding behind. Just some things to think about. And also, I've made a little something for you in case you're getting frustrated arguing with Zios or talking to your parents who just repeat talking points that they've heard in the news. It's a PDF breaking down all of the most common rhetorical fallacies that are used by the media to spread propaganda, with examples on how Western and Zionist media use these tactics to garner support for Israel. It's a completely free PDF that you can download now off of my website. Okay, love you. Keep honing your discernment. Free Palestine.
Yeah, no. Just because the occupied Palestine has their normalized rape and like put rapists and pedophiles in their TV shows, and they commemorate demonic cult practices. I think we are very good. It's a healthy high consciousness, Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, highest dimension, 5th, 12th dimension. It's very healthy to say fuck Israel, and no, we are not normalizing that in any fucking country on this planet. Do you understand me? Do we make ourselves clear? I hope that's clear. Is that clear? Yeah. I hope any parent who has children, I hope that in your conscience you are not okay with normalizing genocide, rape, and ethnic cleansing and stuff like that, right? And we should not be okay to have Palestine to be test run for arms, weapons for USA, Canada, and all these fucking psychopath fucking cities of the West, right? Enough is enough. It starts with us. Yeah, it ends with us. Yeah. So savor that, taste that. It's time to imagine a new world and tasting decolonization at this point, smelling it, living it every day. Like as if it's breakfast, dinner, and lunch for those who have that privilege to have those 3 meals per day. And if you have extra, make sure that you're giving to those who don't have that privilege. Okay? I hope this is clear. I'll see you in the next video.
You've probably noticed there is a tremendous effort to suppress pro-Palestine voices. Resistance News Network, where people get the most accurate, up-to-date information from Palestinians on the ground, was suspended in the EU. UK-based journalist Richard Medhurst was arrested at Heathrow Airport simply for his reporting. The Cradle Media was permanently banned from Meta and Instagram, adding them to accounts like organizer Nardine Kiswani and Within Our Lifetime, who were already permanently banned. My comrade CoinTelHo had her account suspended. The CEO of Telegram was arrested in France. Bisson was nominated from an Emmy and then faced a vitriolic smear campaign from a lot of Zionists in Hollywood. Bassem Youssef was deplatformed off X briefly, and the count from 1 month ago was 160 journalists killed. And yes, killing a journalist is a war crime.
My eyes telling 1,000 stories about a land of hope, a land of courage, a land where one child is braver than 1,000,000 men. I am not from Palestine, and the world is blind. They won't open their eyes or even take a stand. Can they hear the children's cries? Or the bombs that are raining from the skies? I know they do. But all they do is justify their crimes. I'm not from Palestine.